Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. There is an indispensable but uncomfortable word that we Christian people have to reckon with. The word, of course, is sin. Whatever else we want to say about the faith presupposes this term, but many of us don't want to talk about it very much, and for good reason often. After all, we all know people who, when they speak of sin, they speak about everyone else's sin, conveniently forgetting their own. It is these self-righteous souls that tend to give sin, and by the way, the church, a bad name. But as I say, sin is the term that most of the Christian faith presupposes. For if it were not for sin, why would we need forgiveness? If it were not for sin, what is grace? If not for sin, why Jesus Christ? Nearly everything we believe and hold dear presupposes that sin is an ever-present reality. But the mere talk of it can drive people away. I remember several years ago that we had some particular visitors in the church. They looked for all the world like folks who would be assets to our church. But one of our members, who happened to be sitting behind them, overheard a comment one of them made about the service, and particularly about the prayer of confession. The person said something like, "That's a lovely service, but that prayer of confession, well, those are just ugly words." It was clear to our member that the prayer of confession was a total turnoff for this family. And indeed, we never saw them again. It was suggested to me about that time that we lose the prayer of confession from our liturgy, given that it might indeed be a turnoff to some of our visitors. I have to admit that I was taken aback, because in the first place, this part of the Sunday liturgy is so ingrained in me that I cannot imagine worship without it. But in the second place, I realized that some, perhaps many, perhaps even a majority, do not think of themselves as having anything to confess. Perhaps this grows out of what my teacher Doug Otati calls reductively therapeutic spirituality, or that kind of spirituality that reduces Christian faith to whatever helps us feel good about ourselves. I suppose this is a reaction to those self-righteous sorts who almost seem to delight in pointing out the fault in others while never seeing the fault in their own lives. Jesus, of course, condemned this when he asked, "Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye?" But at its best, it is a recognition of our sin, which is a key to spiritual health. Listen to what the psalmist says in Psalm 32. "Happy are those whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Happy are those to whom the Lord imputes no iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no deceit. While I kept silence, my body wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy upon me. My strength was dried up as by the heat of summer. Then I acknowledged my sin to you, and I did not hide my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the guilt of my sin." I believe that deep down, when we try to tell ourselves that we're okay, that we have no sin, let alone the need to confess, we languish. There is still a gnawing sense deep down within us that something is wrong, but we don't know what it is. We don't have the language to name it. But when we are able to name the thing within us that the faith calls sins, we have taken the first steps on the road to healing. It flies in the face of these reductively therapeutic spiritualities that too often deny the reality for sin for fear of causing us to feel bad about ourselves. but all they manage to do is to cut us off from the very source of our healing. Look, most of us don't really need someone else to tell us that something is wrong. We just need to be in a safe community where we confess together before God what that thing is. Let me end with this. St. Augustine of Hippo is usually attributed with the saying, "The church is not a hotel or club for saints, but a hospital for sinners. For we come not to be told how great we are, but rather for the healing that we know we need." May our church indeed be such a hospital where we can come for spiritual healing. And now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.